Cyberpunk is a genre that has been blowing up for the last couple of decades with amazing releases under its belt. It's mainly a subgenre of sci-fi set in a futuristic dystopian world that combines harsh living conditions with very futuristic technology. However, because of the fact that it features harsh living conditions, as a common theme in this genre is that corporations took over the world in either a monopoly or a duopoly, there is also a very present theme of desolation. The Matrix did this by showing how reality is fake, and when Neo woke up it was in this hellish landscape where humans were used as batteries for the machines who took over. And in Cyberpunk 2077, the feeling of desolation is present in the fact that you have extremely limited time because you end up being used by other people over and over with the false intention that you're going to be famous and make it big. But with the job that you're given, you're required to steal something called the Relic from one of the top 3 corporations, and once you steal it, it turns out to be a consciousness that takes over your brain. However, I recently found Severed Steel in my Steam recommended, and I listened to some of the music and instantly fell in love. Drum and bass along with gameplay inspired by Doom, Superhot, Hotline Miami, all paired together with Max Payne's bullet time and well-designed guns in a cyberpunkish world, and it was on sale. It was perfect. I bought it and I could not stop playing because of how fast-paced and well-designed every level is. But because of how fast-paced the levels are, similar to Hotline Miami, once you kill every single person, sometimes it's optional, the music stops and you realize you're alone in a desolate, oversized corporate building. Severed Steel is also really good at allowing the player to play to their own personal style, and it works very well. Similar to previous works mentioned such as The Matrix, there are very strong themes in Severed Steel of taking control and seizing opportunities presented towards you. The gameplay reflects this as well, with the amount of variety that every gun allows for. It's a fresh gameplay loop that constantly maintains itself so well that you don't even realize that you've been playing for 7 hours, as it's so addicting and engaging. This game has amazing production, the story is fairly simple and tells itself in these graphic novel-like cutscenes in between occasional levels. Every single gun sounds different as well, further showing how much care was put into this game. The music also feels homemade and as if a lot of care was put into it. The graphics are amazingly stylized, which is helped even more with the fact that every level is destructible, and in general the entire game is just very well made, and the developers are still updating it to this day. This is Severed Steel. The story starts out with Steel, the person you play as, lying on the floor in a dark and dirty room filled with trash. Her arm has been severed and she remembers more about what happened earlier, and she furrows her eyebrows, hungry for revenge. This then starts the tutorial being in the trash compactor. Finishing this allows you to get to waste management, which is a perfect first level to allow the player to learn the game's movement, level layout, gunplay, and being able to use every single mechanic that you just learned in order to kill enemies. After playing this game for almost 50 hours, I learned that you aren't required to kill every enemy in each section unless the game explicitly tells you to do so. In waste management, you must destroy a terminal and then go through the hatch that gets you to Red House, which has you destroying the thermal controls, then escaping through the emergency exit, going to the mission Red Processing where you destroy pistons. The next location is Cafeteria, where you kill every enemy until Steel gets to the exit where you enter R&D Lab, where you have to destroy samples which are scattered around the wall in the lab, until you get to the Production Lab where you have to destroy consoles also scattered around the lab. Leaving the lab, you enter Cybermesh medicine, which has you find a prototype that ends up being an arm cannon. A cutscene plays which has Steel equipping it on her missing left arm and then busts through the wall to corridor where you tear through walls. Well, technically blowing them up because you have an explosive weapon on your arm, but anyway. After tearing open some walls, you eventually get high enough in the level to exit. In the service vents, you have to destroy the fan power by shooting different terminals until the fans stop working. You then fall down the vent and you get to subway vents, which has you destroying more of the terminals that power up the fans so that you're able to descend further until you get to Cleave or Normalized Emptiness, which is a very large level that requires you to activate a space cube by stepping on pressure plates to activate it. Once activated, you're required to destroy anti-gravity substances until they're all gone and you're able to leave. Train station is where you have 40 seconds to reach the platform. On Train 0, you need to destroy the engines at the very front of the train, and then jump to another train that's in front of the one you just destroyed. You then enter Train, where you have to destroy the controls. When the controls are destroyed, an armored train then arrives next to you, and you're required to destroy the engine of it as well. The train blows up, and Steel walks down the tracks until she reaches the checkpoint, where you have to kill every enemy. Going through the doors, you enter Intelligence, where you have to shoot the weak point. The weak point being an armored dude with a flamethrower. You then enter the data prison, where you have to destroy the consoles that are spread about the level. Once destroyed, you steal the data, being a floppy disk in the previously locked center of the room, and then you enter server room, where you need to destroy the server nodes. When you get out, you go to the armory, where you have to blast through a door to get to the exit. Once blasted, you need to disable the locking system in the prison, which leads to 3 waves of enemies that you're required to defeat. Once you finish defeating them, a cutscene plays that shows Steel angry with the TV in the background with a bullet hole in it. You then fight through and power up the fan in admin vents. Every time you power up a part of the fan, it goes a bit higher until you're finally able to reach the top of the level, where you're able to exit and go to the forest, which has you beginning the relaxation exercise, which basically means you step on pressure plates and releasing your stress, which has you shooting enemies, and then finally you going back to work. Once you get back to work, you're at reception, which requires you to destroy the security system. Upon exiting through the 2nd floor, Steel is now in lower admin and has to kill every enemy in the stage. Once Steel enters the upper floor, you enter middle admin or voided entity, where you have to erase the portable data on 3 different floors. The portable data being little computers scattered around the level on tables. Once they're all destroyed, going towards the elevator has an ambush of enemies until you enter the elevator to go up to upper admin, where you have to hack the computers. By hack, I mean shoot them, of course. Upon hacking, a hidden passage appears, and going into it gets you into the portal labs, where you need to activate the portals. 40 troops then come to fight you, and upon finishing them off, you get to the control room, and a cutscene plays that shows Steel meet another woman who teleports Steel to the barracks. Fighting through enemies and getting to the exit, you arrive at the apartments, or apartment block K, where you're required to kill 3 VIPs on different floors of the apartments until you escape to Greens, where you have to kill 7 snipers in a giant open golf course level. Once killed, you enter the towers or thwarted oppression, where you're told to ascend the towers. Once ascended, you're told to ascend further. Upon further ascending, you enter a final room where there's a portal to a guy sitting in a chair, and the box to the next level being City, where you meet 6 cool guys. The 6 cool guys essentially being like the VIPs from apartments, except they're all in different buildings on different floors. Once you've met them, you go to the party mansion, where you have to Steel has to enter the CEO's office and kill the CEO, who is in this giant cyborg robot with a weak point on the back of it for the most damage. Honestly, for the first real boss fight in this game, this is the coolest level in my opinion. I do like the inclusion of other enemies here as well in case you run out of bullets killing the CEO. Once defeated, a cutscene plays showing him coming out of the cyborg, and an image of the woman who teleported you there gets displayed, and you enter the penthouse level where you have to kill every enemy. You then enter the art gallery, where Steel collects 3 different artifacts, them being subtle references to other video games. Depending on the order of you collecting them, there's the crowbar from Half-Life, Master Chief's helmet from Halo, and the golden gun from GoldenEye. Once collected, you enter the museum, where you place each artifact on the pedestal and then activate it. Activating then entering the exhibit has you killing enemies and taking their power for your arm cannon, which allows you to have more power and 5 total shots compared to the 3 you had before. Exiting then has you in garden, where you have to kill every enemy in a hedge maze. After killing every enemy, you then turn on the lights, which lights a way to the exit by using the trees as a guidance, to which you climb up them to get to the exit. You are given a flamethrower at the estate where you have to burn down the majority of it until the bar at the top of the screen is fully red. Once fully red, you have to kill every enemy until you enter the wall. There are 3 parts of this level, with each section being divided by the wall that you have to use your cannon to shoot through. The first part having 20 enemies to kill, the second having 25, and the last part having 30 enemies until you stumble on the exit. You then enter Conscience, where Steel has to open the portal by first pressing buttons placed around the level. Entering the portal, which leads to a room with a giant red growth in the center until you press the button, which causes a wave sequence of enemies. Once you killed all the enemies, you have to go back in the area you were at first, then destroy 3 shield capacitors. After destroying them, you go back to the secondary area and destroy the growth, which turns out to be a heart. The bar at the top of the screen displays how much health is left. Once the bar hits 0, it has another phase, but instead of going to the area before, you stay in the same area and destroy the shields there so that you can fully destroy the heart. Once destroyed, you're able to escape to the final level, Escapism. This level has you unlocking 3 barriers of it, the borders of the level having this strange looking texture thing that disappears progressively as you unlock each barrier of the level. The buttons to unlock the barriers are scattered about the buildings. After the final barrier is unlocked, you have to unlock the gate and then finally destroy it and escape. Steel, knowing that this was the end, closes her eyes, finally, in peace. The story in Severed Steel is pretty simple, as most of the story is reflected through instructions during the gameplay with some hand-drawn cutscenes in between. It's very subtle and honestly very stylish because it fits the aesthetic of the arcade-like pace and feel that the game presents. The gameplay is ridiculously smooth as well as incredibly responsive. The way that the game has so many guns but a lot of them feeling different, using them is an impressive feat. The pistols feel like they're small but pack a fair punch. The machine guns feel powerful and the shotguns feel overpowered and heavy. The gunplay is genuinely some of the best I've experienced in a fast-paced game. It is similar to Cyberpunk 2077, Doom, Ultra Kill as well. It's also incredibly reminiscent of Superhot, but only with the picking up guns when the magazine is empty. Then again, this game does fall into the fast-paced shoot the head for an insta-kill, pick up guns, kill more enemies, go through the different levels, possibly die, slow down time to get a cool headshot, kill more enemies, and that is the majority of the gameplay loop. It is incredibly immersive, luckily, and despite the story appearing lackluster from an outside perspective, it is surprisingly deep, and with the majority of it being up to audience interpretation. The biggest thing that this game has to offer as well is the bullet time effect whilst holding right click. Of course, you don't have to play the game like this, but it definitely helps on higher difficulties and the different game modes as well. You're able to play this game in any way, shape, or form that you like, which really helps. The best that this game has got to offer is personal preference and choice. You can play this game never using bullet time, or you can play the entire game with your finger on right click. There's so much choice, it's incredible, especially with the map design. You can either speedrun your way through the levels or slowly explore each portion and discover enemies in many different areas of the game world. But I would have to say that the fact you can play this game in any style that you like really makes me appreciate this much more than I ever would. The different game modes that Severed Steel offers is the Campaign, New Game Plus, Firefight, technically not a game mode, but a level editor, editor, and Rogue Steel. The campaign is pretty good and very fun, as I've talked about prior. The campaign New Game Plus mode is the campaign, but the enemies are stronger and have either doubled or tripled in amounts. You also die faster. The bonus levels have several Steam Workshop levels that were so well designed that they made it into the base game. The levels include Church, which is in a church and is a full-fledged story level, Command-Exist, which acts as a psychological thriller in a way, Icarus, which has you destroying the Icarus project made by Eden Sys, the same company that threw you into the trash compactor. Icarus is an AI that monitors the world's internet traffic, which would allow Eden Sys to gain omnipotence. Input-Query is similar to Command-Exist, Soul-Horizons, which is set in a beautiful traditional Japanese setting where you fight enemies in a series of waves. The Chalet, which has you going through a different entrance in Eden Sys and taking data, destroying it, and escaping. And finally, Junction C, which has you collecting weapons and new technologies whilst killing enemies in a giant train station. All of these levels are very unique, pretty fun to play, and adds a lot of interesting lore elements to the game. The Firefight mode in Severed Steel is essentially an arcade mode, but you're able to choose each individual level and beat specific challenges that are tailored to that level and get a really high score the more multipliers you put on. The level editor allows you to edit your own personal levels and put them onto the Steam Workshop, fairly self-explanatory. And finally, Rogue Steel, which is a roguelite version of Severed Steel where you gain multipliers and choose 1 from 3 whenever you complete each section. This game mode is actually ridiculously fun as you're able to unlock various cosmetics for Steel as well as changing the color of your cannon, which does actually stay in each game mode after you play this one. You have the choice to either play 10 levels or 8 levels, each of them giving you roughly a similar amount of points at the end of each run. With Rogue Steel being a roguelike game mode, it comes with a series of multipliers and cards that change the way you play the game and your current run. Now, another core element of the gameplay, and definitely the biggest one, is the gunplay. You do start with a gun at the start of each level, but you're able to pick up guns from the enemies that you encounter, and most of the time they're either better or worse. What's nice about the level of detail is the fact that enemies will actually reload if they run out of ammo, and when you pick it up, it will actually have a full magazine if you kill them before they shot you with the reloaded magazine. Another really cool thing is that with the majority of the guns, they have an indicator on the barrel/front of the gun that blinks depending on how much ammo you have in your gun. This added detail is really cool, and that stems towards the gun design as well. I really appreciate this feature even though there is an ammo indicator right on the crosshair as well, but if you're not paying attention to the crosshair and are just mowing down enemies or looking at the pretty level design, the light on the gun does help as an addition for knowing when it's time to get a new gun. However, most people I feel would just look at the ammo indicators. You do look at the crosshair a lot. What's also nice is that every single gun in the game has its own distinct details and design along with the enemies using the guns as well. Now, I'm not going to list every single gun that each enemy type gets because the game does have a sort of random number generation that works through and gives different things to enemies every single time you play the game so that it's not stale, as you're almost always going to be picking up different weapons. Now, I'm pretty sure it should be obvious by now, but the reason you don't reload weapons or have extra ammo is mainly the fact that Steel has only one arm. So this restriction actually makes gameplay a lot more unique and cooler, as there's a type of exclusivity whenever it comes to certain guns that you like, where if you pick it up, use up all the ammo, and then regret wasting it because you were shooting at walls. Once you find your favorite gun, I feel like you as the player start respecting that specific weapon more by using up less bullets and trying to kill more enemies either by kicking them, sliding into them, or by trying to get a collateral hit killing multiple enemies at once, so you're not able to reload due to that very obvious yet cool detail. Another reason why there's no reloads in this game is because Matt Larrabee, who designed the game, didn't know how to create a good looking reload animation, so he just decided to give Steel a single arm so that he wouldn't have to animate it. There are quite a lot of enemies in Severed Steel, each with different attributes and details about them. The lowest tier of enemies are called standard grunts, who either have pistols or typical assault rifles. The second type of enemy are the snipers, who have snipers. The third are shield grunts, who have shields and wield either shotguns or rifles. Jumpers are enemies who aren't able to die from fall damage and have fast firing weapons. The heavy grunts have helmets and are also either equipped with grenade launchers or lobbers. The jetpack grunts have jetpacks and are able to fly around the level and either have snipers or fast firing weapons as well. The next type of enemy is the minigun, which is an enemy that has a fast firing weapon on their shoulders. There are also turrets, according to the level editor, that are the rocket turret and the machine gun turret. There are then the rocket grunts, who have rockets on their shoulders and an assault rifle. The standard elites are essentially just grunts, but they use silenced weapons and have the ability to become invisible. There are then the zombies, who have full armor including a helmet and a pack on their back powering the flamethrower that they use. The final enemy type is the specialist, who use assault rifles or silenced weapons. The movement in Severed Steel is ridiculously fluid and beautifully dynamic. The slides, the rolls, and the dives, accompanied with the ability to do backflips and front flips like reenacting scenes from the Matrix, is immaculate. The movement is very smooth, and there's a setting called Like Water, which is a mutator that allows you to dive into wall runs and kick slide while diving. It allows for an even smoother experience while playing the game. However, the setting can be turned on normally for Rogue Steel or in other mutators for New Game Plus or doing the singular levels you're able to do. Another one of my favorite details in this game is the fact that cheats are actually a lot of fun to have, many of them including very funny ones such as infinite ammo, explosive ammo, and basically everything being able to explode. All in all, it's fairly simple to see that the gameplay in this game has been designed with such love and care to the point where it basically feels perfect while controlling steel. You're able to do backflips and front flips, which is a brand new mechanic to this type of shooter from what I've seen / played, and it makes for a really cool gameplay experience. The movement allows for endless possibilities of cool tricks you can do. The only thing I wish that this game had was something like the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games where they gave you points for doing cool combos and tricks under a time limit. Of course, with this game, it would make more sense to not do it under a time limit, but to do all the combos and tricks until you killed all the enemies in the map. But other than that, Severed Steel has a very beautifully designed movement system and gameplay that is absolutely badass to control, and most of all, incredibly addicting and rewarding. One more thing about the firefight mode: depending on how many levels you've reached, you're able to unlock guns and levels. The guns are Heavy Pistol, R Shotgun, SMG, ES4, OSH1, Eon, Combat Rifle, Shotgun, RC3, Ayakashi, Zip, Wiffle 90, Rocket 2, Deacon, DB2 Shotgun, RC3S, Bulldog, VS Val, Shotgun S, L85H, Flamethrower, Lobber, P99, Silent SMG, Sawn-Off, Silent Pistol, Level Action, 44, 980, Ishikaya, L3, EMP7, and the Slash. All of these are unlockable by playing the firefight mode and reaching level 100 and beyond. The levels are the same as the ones in campaign. There are 46 total mutators, with 6 of them being cheats. The cheats are Super Slide, which lets you slide forever, see through walls, Steel Crawler, which turns you invisible during stunts, Explosive Ammo and Unlimited Ammo, and Bulletproof. Each mutator changes the multiplier of how many points you end up getting at the end of completing each firefight level and Rogue Steel run. The 40 mutators are Big Heads, Triple Threats, Limited Slow-Mo, Warrior Monk, which has you throw guns instead of shooting them, Paintball, Super Kick, Melee gives enemies, One in the Chamber, all guns you pick up have a single bullet, Scary Lighting, level is slightly darker, Low Gravity, floor is lava, Like Water, you're able to do more stunt combinations like wall running from a dive, Steelcraft, game world is more cubic, Thrust Cannon, your cannon now repels you, enemies explode on death, Cloaked, all enemies are replaced with the ones that can turn invisible, Thrown weapons explode, attack the weak point, headshots only do damage, 2x cannon, boost rate of fire, guns shoot 33% faster and are all full auto, chain reaction, crack troops, faster moving enemies, double mag, exploding door, doors that are kicked explode as well as when enemies open them too, rip and tear, melee kills refill your weapon, kills refill mag, like the one before except it only refills a single round to your magazine, faster steel, you're 30% faster, explosive shields, faster slow-mo, bullet time doesn't slow time as much, hold on tight, enemies don't drop their weapon when they get stunned, explosive props, Eat and Sys extended mags, enemies have 50% larger magazines, passive cannon charge, cannon recharges a shot every 10 seconds, blood feud, arm cannon and melee kills restore health only, perfect accuracy, super dive, dives are 50% faster and farther. Super kick slide, 33% faster kick slide. Super wall run, you move upwards instead of downwards and get a bit more speed. Triple jump, and rebalanced bullet time. Bullet time is no longer infinite in a stun. Each of these mutators have different score multipliers, and depending on which ones you turn on, you're able to unlock achievements with them on certain levels. The highest possible multiplier for mutators is 75.058 times. The way to get to this multiplier is by turning on all of the mutators that multiply the final score by 1 times and higher, as well as turning on molten steel. A lot of the visuals in this game mostly consist of voxels and a lot of traditional cyberpunk elements. Severed Steel focuses a lot of its attention on lighting, with most of the game being lit up with a neon look like the Party Mansion level. Of course, with the cyberpunk influence that this game has, there are a lot of neon lights and bright colors, but also the looming corporate feeling that the game really shows quite well whilst playing. The visuals give a very striking feel towards how the entire game treats itself by being able to feel Steel's anger with the way that she moves around the world, with speed lines around her vision and enemies being lit up in red, so you have an easier time hitting headshots and quick kill combos. This game presents itself as a beautiful neon light littered landscape with a cold-hearted gray facility that appears to be a megastructure in an apocalyptic future world. The colors that this game shows are beautiful, the main color palette being aggressive reds, lonely grays, and as I mentioned throughout this entire video, neon rainbows. The overall vibe of this game is fairly grim, however optimistic at some parts, but similarly to an office building for a popular corporation, there's a fake type of positive futurism in a grey, boring, desolate space, like Windows Vista and the Frutiger Aero aesthetic, as it's meant to be a type of hopeful and beautiful future, but in a corporate space, like the complete opposite of cyberpunk. Of course, this is strictly an illusion inside the building rather than it actually being the case. There is no optimism here, only an illusion of it, which does make it true cyberpunk in that regard. The very open levels are actually designed in a very cool way as well. The stairways actually have proper AI mapping on them, which allows enemies to walk up and go to different floors or floors that you're on. Not only that, but the taller the buildings are, the more the environments get destroyed. For instance, in the closed building levels, such as the one where you have to kill the 3 VIPs, as well as the level where you have to hack the computers, including the fact that the compact levels allow for a lot of interesting approaches to how exactly you can complete a level or kill enemies. The way that enemies are designed makes the game much more interesting as well, with the amount of detail that each different enemy has, as well as the amount of armor too. You're able to single out each enemy and are able to tell which one is a higher priority to kill depending on what they have on. I love how every single lower tiered enemy doesn't have a helmet and take longer to reload their weapons compared to higher tiered enemies where they have to reload incredibly fast, and act more tactically compared to their lower tiered comrades. I also love the jetpack enemies, how after you kill them while they're in midair, the jetpack that they're using just goes flying around the level. It's such a cute attention to detail and makes the game even more lovable to me. The comic book art style works in tangent with this game as well, adding a grittier outlook as to what exactly the player is experiencing. Seeing a lot more world building with Steel as the silent protagonist and the actions of others that revolve around her in cutscenes that add a bit more context into this desolate world, and then at the end of the game where you see a frozen wasteland, but at the same time opportunity with the amazingly tailored soundtrack fitting the emotional resolution at the end of the game. Now, even though you're not able to see Steel in a mirror in the game, you are able to get different cosmetics from the Rogue Steel game mode. You have 11 different jackets and 16 different cannon skins to choose from depending on how many points you have gotten through Rogue Steel runs. Unlocking each skin gives you an extra optional visual in the game, as well as any game mode that you play in. Unlike Valorant, these skins are actually free. The soundtrack for Severed Steel is made by Floating Door and has the majority of the songs playing throughout different points in the game. The game really puts an emphasis on music being a core element whilst playing the game, especially since this is quite a violent game but fairly muted compared to Doom and similar games in the run and gun genre. The music sounds incredibly ethereal most of the time, as well as the core genres of the soundtrack being drum and bass, synthwave, ambient, and ethereal breakcore. The soundtrack made by Floating Door actually has 2 parts, being Chewing Glass and Chewing Glass Part 2, both being followed by Severed Steel's soundtrack in brackets. The reason for the divided soundtrack was because Floating Door used DistroKid as this distributor, and DistroKid has a limit as to how many songs you can put into an album. The dates of the soundtrack releases are also due to DistroKid. The first part of the soundtrack is 30 songs, which gives you the 90 minutes of music. with my personal favorites being Make-25, Molten Steel, Pugachev's Cobra, X-15, Tempest, New World Order, Bologna, Ethereal Transit, and Blunt Force Trauma. The second part of the soundtrack is 15 songs but gives you 52 minutes of music, with my personal favorites being An Argument for Humanity, Escape from Eden Sis, Solar Punk, Death from Above, Bilderberg Group, Caught in the Storm, and Gun Party. The music in this game really matches the visuals, the neon portions of the game matching the immaculate beauty of the music, and the industrial corporate surroundings match the desolation that the music gives off as well. All of this essentially allows for me to call the soundtrack an easy masterpiece. The developer Matt Larrabee came up with the idea of Severed Steel in July of 2019. He worked on it part-time while working a day job until April 2020 when he partnered with Digerati and started working on Severed Steel full-time. He kept working on it until he launched it on Steam in September of 2021. The inspiration for the game came from the specialist mod for Half-Life, Superhot, Max Payne, and Bioshock. The bullet time was especially inspired by Max Payne, The Matrix, and Fear. The game's first foundation while it was being developed was bullet time. It was the first mechanic that was developed, as evident by this video Matt uploaded on his channel on August 6, 2019, which is why there's so much bullet time given to the player and why the controls allow for it so easily as well. There were many original concepts for the game, but all of them included the same mechanics, a first-person shooter with bullet time and stunts. There was also an idea for an old western setting as well as an open world set in the Arctic. There was also an idea for a snowmobile to be implemented into the game where you could drive it to levels whenever you finished one. Eventually he settled on smaller levels in a cyberpunk setting with focused gameplay, and it made the most sense. The original design for Steel was also different. She was going to be closer to John Wick, but when Matt began shopping around for character models, he saw a female model that looked really cool and decided to try it out, and it fit. He also wanted Steel to be really similar to Trinity from The Matrix and Samus with the cannon arm. When Matt was working on the game, he was having a hard time trying to get reload animations looking right and fitting in the voxel world that he created, but every single time he would give Steel a different looking reload animation, it just looked strange to Matt every single time. So he kept thinking of ideas as to how exactly he could get around having to need reload animations. He decided that Steel would have a single arm and would just pick up guns and deplete them of their ammo and pick up new guns that would have ammo that are lying around the game world. There are many mechanics in Severed Steel such as bullet time, platforming, stunts, and of course the cannon arm. Now many ideas of different mechanics weren't able to get into the game as they didn't fit into the entire flow of things or they were too complicated to understand. Matt originally wanted to have environmental puzzles that could be solved with different cannon modes. There would have been a gravity cannon, glue cannon, magnet cannon, all used for solving puzzles. The player would have also been able to switch the type of cannon that they had by using the scroll wheel, but when Matt developed the game even more, the focus gravitated towards intense combat and the slow cannon puzzles ended up not fitting into the flow of the game. There also would have been a dialogue system similar to Metal Gear's codec system, but it also didn't fit to the flow of the game. Of course, when working on a game, there will always be bugs that every programmer encounters. The funnier bugs that Matt encountered when working on the game was a time where you would be able to see your legs in game. This would also be visible while doing stunts and diving, and Matt gave the legs ragdoll effects. This didn't end up working well, as while doing stunts, Steel's legs would be flying all over the place, be incredibly wobbly, and clip into guns, camera, and to the walls as well. Matt then fixed this issue by simply just removing the ragdoll effect. While working on different cannons, the explosion radius was a bit too big, and after shooting the cannon, half the level would just disappear. Of course, there are also many developmental videos on Matt's YouTube channel detailing and showing off the growth and development of Severed Steel. As a bonus fact, whenever you open up the game, the window is named "Thank you very cool." This is a phrase that Matt really enjoyed when he started developing the game, but he wasn't able to fully change it due to the nature of Unreal Engine files and how tedious it is to rename them, so he just left it as a little Easter egg. Going back to 2019, Matt was looking for music to put into the game, and so someone from his Discord server sent Floating Door's SoundCloud and suggested that Matt reach out to him. Matt began talking about the game, and Floating Door began work on the soundtrack as soon as possible. Matt originally requested that Floating Door check out and play Hotline Miami, but over time the more drum and bass focus tracks came much later and were mostly an afterthought. The first song for the game, Pseudo, wasn't even made for it, and was sent to Matt by Floating Door as an example of his work. Matt and Floating Door worked with each other to make this soundtrack for the game. FD would send Matt some tracks, and Matt would either love the songs and put them into the game, or he would chime in with thoughts of what could be different. Floating Door was given full control of the soundtrack and sent Matt all of his ideas to make sure that the game and soundtrack would flow perfectly in the end. Whenever FD felt the song was mediocre, he would scrap it and start a new idea, but would still send it to Matt to see what he thought. The way that Floating Door designed the soundtrack was by watching the different demos and prototypes of Severed Steel and then building the music off of the visuals of Severed Steel's world. As the rest of the tracks were being developed, Floating Door's computer was running incredibly slowly, so he decided to put all of the music he had produced so far onto an external hard drive. He wiped his computer, but once he plugged in his external to retrieve the files, he had found out that the external hard drive had died, and half of Severed Steel's soundtrack was gone. Luckily, many of the songs were already sent to Matt, they just couldn't be worked on anymore. But eventually the entire soundtrack was developed and made it into the game. Most of the songs on the soundtrack were developed in the last 6 months before the game was released. Floating Door's favorite song is Molten Steel, while his least favorite is Ethereal Transit, and Matt's is Code Heist. But he pretty much loves all of the songs on the soundtrack, except for his least favorite one, which is On the Run, which wasn't originally included in the game, but one of the campaign extension mappers liked it a lot, so it made it onto the final soundtrack. Severed Steel is an absurdly polished experience with an addictive gameplay loop, beautiful soundtrack, great visuals, and the best combat and movement I have ever experienced in a video game. The overall look and feel of everything is so beautiful and unique that it almost makes you feel bad for destroying the beautiful neon environments. Except for the mansion, of course, I would gladly commit arson all the time with that level. The music is so ethereal and fits so perfectly into the game and its atmosphere. It truly brings out the entire look and feel, and with Floating Door's music and Matt's world design, it allows them to become the ultimate dream team. The music is wonderfully paced, with everything being equally balanced to allow the player to be stimulated and always being given something to do. Going through levels like in Hotline Miami and then sometimes having to navigate your way back through the destruction really gives the player the sense of fault and ruin that they have created. But this game doesn't put a strong emphasis on that. Hotline Miami has you, the protagonist, a mute sociopath, kill a lot of people because of instructions given to them. However, in Severed Steel, it's much more different as you are technically given instructions before the start of each level, but because the Megacorp threw you away like trash, they're now trying to kill you. In a way, this is purely self-defense with a strong emphasis of a revenge story. Severed Steel is the complete opposite of Hotline Miami, as there you willingly go to homes, complexes, clubs, and many different types of buildings and begin a homicidal rage, whereas in Severed Steel you kill to survive. You have no choice but to escape by going through the facility. The map even reflects this whenever you finish level, with you going through the game in one of 3 directions, forward, up, and down. But no matter what, Steel is always going forward until she's finally able to escape and find herself in a frozen, desolate wasteland. Severed Steel is about you fighting for your freedom and working hard getting out of personal hells. You start at the absolute bottom, in a trash compactor, thrown away by the company that turned you into the super soldier that you are. Steel, powered and fueled by raging revenge, storms through the facility, fighting to escape, and killing the people responsible for hurting her, until eventually you're able to leave the confines and break the binds that held you to the self-destruction where you were before. The enemies are like obstacles in your way to making yourself a better person. The more powerful the enemy, the bigger the obstacle, but no matter what, use what you can in order to get yourself wherever you want to go. The frozen wasteland when you go through the final level is the world of freedom and opportunity that you have once you crush your fears and weaknesses, which is why it's shown as infinite in the final cutscene of the game, because you have no limits to what you can do. Take control of your life and don't let anyone stop you from achieving your goals and your dreams. You can do anything. Severed Steel is a metaphor for taking control and allowing yourself to be free using your own personal abilities. It's motivational, powerful, and inspiring. At the same time, you can also listen to music to calm yourself down and reset from having to deal with all the stress. It's also beautiful, knowing that no matter what happens, you'll always be able to overcome the pain that you live through, and even more so, you're much stronger than you think. So if you get yourself out of a slump and you're overwhelmed by how many things are coming to you, think of how all those things are purely obstacles that you can utilize. Use them to your advantage in order to help you to become a better person, and opening up infinite amounts of opportunity. This is how Severed Steel creates beautiful and addictive desolation. When one door closes, another opens. But we often look so long and so regretfully upon the closed door that we do not see the one that was newly opened for us. Alexander Graham Bell. Thank you to everyone who has watched this video. I really appreciate you all sticking around to the ending, and I hope you enjoyed watching. I would really be thankful if you shared this with your friends and people you know, like the video, and of course subscribe to my channel. I also have a Patreon where you can support me there if you want to see similar work to this. I of course would love to thank Matt for the interview and for making Severed Steel, and I would love to thank Floating Door, who gave me some of the unused music for Severed Steel and telling me more about the production of the music, as well as giving me more facts and info, as well as Matt. Make sure to check out their links in the description, as well as the other people who have worked on Severed Steel to help make it the fantastic game that it is today. I hope you all enjoyed watching, and I hope you all have a day. So, this is essentially the end of the video. However, I was lucky enough to receive Steam keys for Severed Steel, and you can enter the giveaway in the description where I will be giving away Steam keys to 15 lucky people that I will have randomly selected. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and be sure to check out Matt's new game, Echo Point Nova. It will have a demo soon, and I will be very excited to play it. I will hopefully be either streaming the footage on my Twitch, or I'll be making a video on it similar to this one. However, there's a bigger chance I'll be doing the video instead. I'm also working on a really ambitious project about Valorant skins, so I would suggest to be on the lookout for that. And Kona 2 will also be coming out soon, hopefully. I will be making a video on that as well. But in the meantime, look in the description for the giveaway link, and I will announce the winners in my Discord and send emails to the winners as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.